Hello, this is AstrologerCoach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming full moon in 3 degrees of Virgo, which will be exact on February 22nd at 1:20 p.m. East Coast time in the US, which is also New York time, or 10:20 a.m. Pacific time, which is also the West Coast or LA time. Now, full moon is always an opposition between the moon and the sun. So for the next 2 weeks, we're really seeking for a balance and an integrative process between those two signs and these opposites. So we're really looking to see that these two perspectives, the Virgo and the Pisces perspective in this case, can be integrated. And very often we experience oppositions like this through interacting with other people. So relationships of all kind are really highlighted very often during the full moon, but it's ultimately it's a process that can happen between us and another person or internally within us as well. Now, this full moon in Virgo opposes the sun in Pisces, and this resonates very closely to the current placement of the moon nodes, which are also in Pisces and in Virgo. So the moon nodes have to do with our soul's journey. So feel free to watch my video on that subject, moon nodes in Virgo and Pisces until 2017, I believe. And so just see, with this full moon, you're probably this integrative process for these next 2 weeks is very much in alignment with what we're currently experiencing on a soul level as well with our soul's journey. So I'm also going to make a really important announcement at the end of this video about something new that I'm starting. So I'm very excited about that. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned until the end. But for now, I want to talk a little bit about the difference between Pisces and Virgo and how we can integrate the two. Now, Pisces is all about spirit. It's about the non-physical. It's about our intuition, mysticism, the ability to feel and sense things, to tap into, the energy all around us. Pisces perceives waves of potential, and Pisces really has the quest to have the realization. The journey of Pisces is to just realize that light, love, and compassion is really all there is, and that in everything we do and everything we experience, when we bring light, love, and compassion to the table, then we can really experience complete fulfillment and complete enlightenment in a sense, right? But when we're not able to do that, when we're not able to really tap into this love energy, we might slip into helplessness, victimization, martyrdom. These are some of the lower vibrations of Pisces, and very often they come about when we feel separate, when we feel alone, this loneliness that Pisces sometimes feels, right? And so it's very important for a Pisces person or a Pisces energy to tap into the interconnectedness of all there is. Tap into the energies around you and feel how you are constantly supported by energy, by the energy field around you, that you're never really truly alone. Now, whereas Pisces is, all about the spiritual and non-material, Virgo is very much about the physical. It's about matter. It's about reason. It's about science, rational thinking, discernment, right? And so the Virgo energy definitely focuses on the particular, on something that's exact. It's very analytical in its way. It wants to understand things. And it's definitely very mind-oriented, right? Whereas Pisces is very heart-oriented. And so the spiritual task of Virgo is really to allow to move from the darker or the lower vibrations of Virgo into the more higher vibrations of Virgo, from judgment into discernment, from humiliation into humility, from servitude into service, right? So Virgo is also very much about a wholesome approach. Virgo very much wants to kind of improve things and allow for all systems to work smoothly together. And so one of the ways Virgo does that is by looking at our physical body, right? Because it's about matter. Virgo is about matter. So one of the things that is matter is our physical body. And, having an understanding that every cell in our bodies is alive and is interconnected with all the other cells in the body. They're all communicating with each other. And that our physical body, our feeling body, our mental body, and spiritual body or spirit body is also interconnected with each other. That they're all operating, all these systems are operating together. And so every cell in our body is in communication with all of these systems, with all of these bodies, so to speak, right? So everything really affects everything else. And so when Virgo really is at its highest vibration, it understands that everything is connected, that there is a holistic or a wholesome approach to life, right? So what would it take for us to balance intellect and intuition, or to integrate the two? Could you bring a little bit more of awareness, your own awareness, to the balance between effort, which would be a Virgo quality, and surrender, which would be a Pisces quality? And also, when I talk about effort and surrender, it's very important to distinguish what effort and surrender means and what it is. So effort, very often when we hear effort, we're thinking about, pushing, or we're thinking about, really getting something, making an effort. Sometimes we go into overthinking with making an effort. When we think about surrender, sometimes we think about giving up, right? But really, surrender is not about giving up. It's about just allowing for things to be as they are, to just being present with what is. That is surrender. It's surrender means to stop fighting what is. And effort is about taking steps, taking small action steps towards something to make an improvement, to make something better, to make something work better, right? That's what Virgo is all about, right? So rather than pushing, overthinking, or giving up, could you experiment with taking small, simple actions and have faith in the universal support that is always there for you, no matter what you do, right? And what if you trusted in a perfect outcome? And perfect outcome, I want to talk about that a little bit, because remember that our conditioned mind thinks of perfect in different ways than maybe our higher mind or our soul would consider what a perfect outcome would be. Because a perfect outcome is not necessarily what we think is perfect, but what is perfect. So just something to contemplate about and to see if we can just trust that everything is a perfect outcome, no matter what the outcome, right? Now, of course, our intellect, our conditioned mind and our intellect, it measures, it compares, it categorizes, it prefers linear, sequential, right? But yet when we look at the natural world is really complex. It's very non-linear. I mean, you just have to look at nature, right? If you go into the forest or if you go on a mountain, look at nature, how complex it is, how non-linear it is. That's life. I mean, that's a direct reflection of what life is about, right? Even our own physical bodies, if we look at our own physical systems, they're complex. They're non-linear, right? So everything in the universe is really much more complex than the rational mind can even comprehend sometimes, right? And so everything is on a molecule level. If you look at the very minute level of all things, whether it's physical, gas, whether it's water, everything that we can, whether we can touch it or whether we can't touch it, whether we can see it, whether we can't see it, everything on a molecular level is energy. And energy is constantly vibrating and constantly moving. And so as that, energy is always interconnected with each other. So really, if everything is energy and everything is always vibrating, then it's always in contact with each other, everything, right? Whether we're aware of it or not, whether we see it or not, right? So in a sense, life is really a miracle. It's a miracle how all of it works, how it's all like, even things that we can't even comprehend why they're working, you know? Our bodies, our bodies are miraculous in the sense that how does this function? You know, how does my heart keep beating without me having to think, beat, 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 you know? Like, how does the digestion work, right? Like, it's miraculous. All of it is so miraculous. And so sometimes, you know, when we can't understand something or when we can't fully comprehend the miracles of life, you know, it's hard for us sometimes to connect to that, because very often, you know, the thing that holds us back from seeing it or experiencing it, how miraculous it really is our fear that we have. Our fear, you know, our conditioned mind very often is conditioned to want to understand, want to comprehend what all this is all about, what life is all about, what your body is all about, what your decision-making process is all about. You know, how do you make decisions? How do you not make decisions? You know, like, fear is the one thing that keeps us from tapping into the miracles that are available for ourselves always, all the time. And fear creates a lot of stuff, right? Fear creates prejudice. It creates exploitation, perfectionism. Fear can create impatience. Fear can create the need for control over life or one of its life forms, right? Tyranny. There's so many things that come from fear, you know, and not just in the outside world. You know, very often when you hear these things, you know, like tyranny and exploitation and perfectionism and things like that, you know, prejudice, you keep thinking about the news, or, you know, or I, at least sometimes I go like, you know what, that's all out there. That's not me, right? But if I'm honest with myself, of course, there's fear in me. There is perfectionism in me. There's impatience in me. There's the need for control in me sometimes, right? So these things are there, maybe not 24/7, but I know what that feels like because it's part of my conditioning, right? Part of my conditioning is fear. Part of the human experience is fear and limitation, right? So as best as you can, just observe when fear shows up. And fear can show up in many ways. It doesn't have to be terror, right? It can be small. It can be like a worry or concern or a tension in your body or sort of like a resistance that you're feeling, right? All of that is fear. So just observe how it shows up for you and how it's connected to your own perfectionism or how it's connected to your own impatience or to your own need to control things, right? And to just observe it. There's no need to punish yourself or to change it or to, to do anything with it. Just be compassionate with yourself and just be with it, observe it, because awareness is always the first step, right? It's important for us to become aware of these things because then we can create a shift, not before then. So there's a couple of other aspects I want to mention real quick with this full moon. Mercury conjuncts Venus in Aquarius. So this aspect is very much about allowing a collaboration between the head and the head and the heart, the mind and the heart. We're asked to create a vision for the future that allows for interrelatedness, equality, diversity, collaboration. It's very much a future that's based in a heart-centered, peaceful relationships. So we're really looking to see how can we achieve that? How can we move towards heart-centered, peaceful relationships with ourselves, with other people, in the world, right? Now, the other aspect is Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, is conjuncting the sun in Pisces. So here we're becoming more aware of our interconnectedness with all living things, with our ability to tap into energy and into the energy fields around us, you know, and feeling how we are our energy ourselves, our body, our feelings, our thinking, and how we can perceive and interconnect with all energy around us, right? So it's really about tapping into our spiritual roots, our divine origin, and the sacredness of all that exists, all being energy, right? So it's kind of like, Pisces is a water sign. So you can think of it as like it's the third water sign of the zodiac. So you can think of it as like a very deep water. So it's kind of like the ocean, because the ocean reaches all around the world, and it connects the land with the land and the water, and it interconnects everything, right? So the ocean is vast, it's huge, it's deep, all life kind of exists because of it, right? Because there wouldn't be any rain without the ocean, there wouldn't be any water without the ocean. So if we're able to connect to that divine essence, which is all around us, that's when we feel really connected to our heart center, to our feelings, to our intuition. When we're unable to connect to that divine essence, we feel separate. And separation is a feeling, or loneliness is a feeling that can really come up with Pisces as well. But it's an illusion. It's an illusion that might cause us to look for an escape from life, escape from certain realities in our lives that we don't want to be with, right? Something that doesn't feel good. So it's really about acknowledging and seeing like that all this is because we feel separate, because we have the belief that we're separate. So one of the ways we deal with feeling separate very often as human beings is through addiction, through escaping reality, right? But there are many, many forms of escaping reality. I mean, even violence is a way to push away life and to push away what you don't want to be with, right? So there are many, many ways in which we suffer because of the assumption that we're separate and alone, that we have to fend for ourselves as nations, as human beings, as individuals, right? And so for most of us, this is a very old and deeply embedded belief system. So if we can shift these belief systems, if we can shift from this sense of that we're separate and alone to reconnecting to our inner divinity, which is really a loving heart. Our inner divinity is all about love, and it's all about really connecting to our heart center. The heart being the most important organ in the physical body as well, right? I mean, that in itself tells us that the heart is really important, right? And so once we can connect to that love, to that heart energy, we can leave behind all the suffering, and we can see the perfection in all that is. So when we're born, right, for example, we really just understand the language of love. I mean, if you've looked at babies, they're pure love. They don't understand anything else. They just know love. And when we grow older, that's when we learn about fear and about limitations. Sort of like we get conditioned into these things, and our conditioned mind very much operates from fear and limitation, because it's connected to past experiences. It wants to prevent things from happening in the future that have caused us pain or that have been difficult for us to deal with. So the conditioned mind very much uses fear as a way to navigate us through life. And so when we're adults, it's really, we're getting this invitation as adults to really challenge our assumptions and our learned behaviors, to really challenge how we connect to the world, whether we connect to it through fear, through our conditioned mind, or whether we allow to more tap into our heart and to connect to the world through the heart, through love, right? So we very often we feel very identified with the conditioned mind, and so you have to ask yourself, is that who you are? Are you your conditioned mind, or are you more than that? Are you aware of your conditioned mind? Of course we are, right? We're aware of the conditioned mind. But are you more than that? Are you capable of tapping into the vastness of who you really are, which is way beyond the conditioned mind, right? So a question you can ask yourself: what might be possible if you could let go of fear-based thinking altogether, that conditioned mind, and simply live from the heart, trusting the perfection of each now moment? And the now moment is really where the perfection is. So by us constantly moving into the past and into the future, we're moving away from the now moment. We're moving away from the heart center, from the love place. That's when we move into the conditioned mind, is the past and the future. So it's really important for us to really get present in the here and now. And this Sun-Neptune conjunction is supporting us with that, is inviting us to really be present in our heart, in the here and now. So another question you can ask yourself: what if you were to let go of all expectations and open your heart to the miracle of life and really surrender to the moment of now, surrender to love? And this is not about giving up, right? This is really just about to stop fighting, to stop being fearful, to stop resisting, to just surrendering to the perfection of all there is, the miracle of life. Ooh, that's a great question, right? So the last aspect I want to talk about is the T-square involving Chiron, Jupiter, and Saturn, which will be almost exact at the time of this full moon, and will be in place until April of this year. So this is quite a long aspect, and this T-square is really encouraging us to create some shifts and changes in our lives. It's a very strong growth aspect for all of us. Now, Chiron is in Pisces, Jupiter is in Virgo, Saturn is in Sagittarius, and is the focus planet of this T-square. So it's really about inviting us to soften our inner critic and embracing our limiting beliefs, and really looking at how limiting our beliefs can be. And so this combination it's not a harmonious combination. This is a combination that challenges us, that asks us to make adjustments, to grow, to be creative in our thinking, in our approaching life, in our manifestation process. And the best way to deal with this T-square is by focusing on talking about it, talking about this process that you're experiencing, this energy that you're experiencing, connecting to others, sharing information, listening to the feedback that we get from our immediate environment. Very important. Listen to the feedback that you're getting from your immediate environment. Now, all these planets are currently in mutable signs, so there is a possibility that we feel really scattered, that we feel easily distracted, that we want to move in a lot of different directions at the same time, almost like someone who has ADD, right? And if you don't know what that is, feel free to look that up. Now, we feel the energy of this T-square for quite a long time, so as best as you can, take it one moment at a time and have faith that all is unfolding as it needs to. Rushing through the day is not going to support us. Instead, look at ways you could adjust and let go of any perceptions that no longer serve your connection to spirit and the ability to live an integrative life, like a life where you integrate different parts of yourselves, where you integrate all of who you are. I always call it the good, the bad, and the ugly, which is, maybe not the way to, I don't know if that's the way to go with it, but it just makes me giggle, and that's why I call it that, right? So, but it's about integrating different parts of yourselves, right? So this is really a great time. This T-square is a really, really great time for healing modalities that use water and sound. So I give you a couple of examples. There are many, many things that you can do with water and sound, and feel free to look it up on the internet as well. One of the things that comes to mind is those flotation tanks that are very popular right now, where you're in complete darkness and there's no sound, and you're just inside water, inside salt water, and you're floating, and so you're really able to completely let go and relax into like a vacuum of nothingness in a sense, right? And And then there is like, you can use hot salt baths, you know, you just make a hot bath and put some Epsom salt into it. The other thing that I do very often throughout the days, I use meditative music, soothing music to help me relax, to help my body relax, my whole system, my whole energy system relax. Drumming could be a way to really connect to sound in a healing way. Tibetan singing bowls could be a way to connect to sound in that way as well. It could be very healing. But there are many, many, many possibilities. So feel free to do your own research and to look into it and see what works best for you. And to also make suggestion, via the comments below the video or via the social media, right? Now, to sum it all up for this full moon, right? This full moon invites us to really integrate matter, the physical, with spirit, the non-physical. Reason with intuition, clarity of mind with an open heart, openness of heart. And as best as you can, just really for the next 2 weeks, be open to discover the synergy between intellect and feeling. What's going on up here and what's going on in your feeling experience, in your feeling body, right? Be open to discovering, the synergy between discernment and compassion. Very important. We need discernment. We need to be able to see what works, what doesn't work. But we also need to be compassionate with ourselves, because without compassion, we're just going to beat ourselves up about stuff, right? The balance between order and chaos, or the integration or the synergy between order and chaos. Chaos is very important because it's very creative. Without chaos, we cannot create anything. Nothing gets created without chaos. Order is important because without order, we can't see what's what. There's no clarity without order, right? So again, both is very important. Practical thinking and imagination, following our dreams. We need both. If we only are in our imagination, in our imaginative world, then nothing will ever happen. Nothing will ever get created. But if we're only in our practical thinking, then we're going to limit ourselves, right? So we need both. We need the imagination, we need the practical thinking. Now imagine for a moment what might be possible if we integrated the material, rational worldview that most of us have in this world with a holistic one, a worldview that encompasses the complexities of life and the interconnectedness between all living beings. Just like nature, just like we see it in nature, just like we experience it or can see it when we look at energy, how energy is constantly, interconnecting. What would happen if we could shift our worldview, right, and integrate both together? Now, one last thing I want to say is that, of course, a lot of these things, have to happen from within, because we don't have control over what happens in the outside world, what happens with other people in our lives, right? How they interact with life and what they are aware of and not aware of, and how they treat themselves and other people. But we do have control over how we treat ourselves. We do have control over how we interact with ourselves and how we interact with the world. So peace is something that always comes from within each one of us. We are the ones who choose what we want to be and who we want to be and how we want to interact in every moment of now. And so that's where the discernment comes in. The Virgo placement of discernment comes in. We have to discern how we want to do this. And the compassion comes in as well, because if we're present to every moment of now, we can be compassionate with ourselves. We can be compassionate with other people, with life. So this is what we want to choose for ourselves. We want to make sure that we can tap into this feeling okay, feeling connected to all that is, and feeling peaceful about all of it. So we need to really connect to that first inside of us, right? So if you have an ascendant, a career point, or personal planets in 1 to 5 degrees of Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, you are going to feel the effects of this full moon more strongly. But even if you don't have personal planets or signs in those degrees, and signs, personal planets, sorry, in these degrees and signs, take a look at your birth chart, at your natal chart, and see where does 3 degrees of Virgo and Pisces land in your chart. Where, what house placements are affected by this full moon. Because these areas of your life are going to need some integration as well, right? So if you don't know what I'm talking about here, feel free to watch my video called How to Read Your Birth Chart. You can email us at info@astrologercoach.com and write recording in the subject line. We will send you a link to the recording with some handouts, all right? Now, here's the moment you've been waiting for in terms of the announcement that I made earlier at the beginning of the video. So as some of you know, I mentioned in my last 2 videos, I mentioned a monthly webinar that I want to be doing on February 22nd, which is the day of the full moon, by the way. And I want to be doing these monthly webinars always on the full moon energy, because I'm a full moon baby, and it's the time where we relate to other people and where things become more aware. So I figured this would be a great day to do monthly webinars. And we'll talk about upcoming events for the month, astrologically speaking. And so this, I have called it the Monthly Life Forecasting Forum. So if you want to join me live, it will be on February 22nd at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time. If you can't join live, you can also join and then just receive a recording after the event, 24 hours after that. And the webinar will be interactive, so you can ask questions and I will comment on them. You can also comment on astrological aspects yourself that you've been experiencing, or what the meaning of them is for you personally, or what you think the meaning is for the world. If you're interested in aligning yourself with the upcoming energies in that way, then this forum, this webinar is definitely for you. And this month, we will be talking about the upcoming eclipses in March and the upcoming stations that are happening in March as well, which will be Saturn, Pluto, and Mars. And stations always mean that those planets will be more exalted in the sky because they're about to turn retrograde, all of them. So no matter whether you're an astrology beginner, an intermediate, an advanced, a pro, I will support you. Everyone is welcome. Everyone will get something out of it. I will make sure that I explain everything in a way that even beginners can follow. And of course, you always have the opportunity to ask questions. So if you are a beginner, definitely don't be shy to ask for what you need so you can understand everything much better. Now, there will be a fee for the webinars. The fee is $24. The webinar is 90 minutes long, an hour and a half. I will try to stay on time within an hour and a half. We might go over once in a while, depending on how much we have to talk about, right? But to register for the webinar, go to my website at AstrologerCoach.com. Below the video and the New Year's special offer on that website, you can register for the event. Registration is complete once you have paid your fee and you have filled out the registration form. So make sure you do both. You pay the fee and you fill out the registration form, and then you're fully registered. And I will send you a link to how to get connected with me a day before the webinar. And for those of you who can't join me live, you will receive a recording. If you've registered for the course, if you've paid for the webinar, I will send you a recording of the webinar 24 hours after the completion of the webinar. Okay, so I will also make all these announcements in my newsletter. If you would like to sign up for my newsletter or receive my weekly forecast via email, you can do that by emailing me at info@astrologercoach.com and just write weekly forecast or newsletter in the subject line, or both if you want to receive both. The weekly forecast is sent out once a week on Sunday night, and newsletter comes out twice a month with announcements for whatever's happening in my world, right? Now, one last announcement. My New Year's reading, my special New Year's reading, is only available for another 8 days after the full moon becomes exact. So if you wanted to take advantage of that special, feel free to do that now. go to my website, AstrologerCoach.com, and click on the link next to New Year's Special, and that's how you can pay for that reading and also fill out the online form at the bottom of that page. I'd be happy to support you with 2016 and what's coming up for you. All right. Now, if you have any general questions about the full moon, feel free to email me at Sonja@AstrologerCoach.com. I'd be happy to answer those. For personal questions, I will ask you to book a reading, because that means I would have to pull up your birth chart, and just to honor my time and to also make sure that I can answer your question fully and completely, I would ask you to book a reading on my website on the services page. All right, so that's AstrologerCoach.com. And have a fantastic full moon. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you. Well, I might not be seeing you, but I might be communicating and hearing you on the webinar on February 22nd. And if you're watching this video after February 22nd, then feel free to reach out for the recording. You can still get the recording after the webinar has been completed as well. But if you register and just sign up, for the webinar, you can still get the recording. All right. So have a good one. Enjoy the full moon. And this is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.